Hello and welcome to the Idiot Book Nook podcast. My name is Blazewing. My pronouns are they, them.
Hello, my name's Lady Punnet, and my pronouns are sometimes they, them. Today is a day, dem, day.
Definite.
Type of day.
You guys are going to be getting...
words.
You what?
I know words.
You do know words. You guys are going to be getting something
know.
a little different from us today because we started out reading our chapter 2 and we had tech issues. Unfortunately, landscapers accidentally cut Dragon's internet cable, so we are unable to do reading books. For right now, it is just me and Lady Punnet. Crittershy may be jumping in at some point to talk on discussion, but don't hold your breath. For the moment, we're calling this...
A lot of teas.
Tongues, Tangents, and Tittilations, Episode 1. This is something we are going to be doing when we have nothing else to do. We're going to be picking a topic, we're going to be starting with that, and we're going to be talking and discussing for you guys. Just so we can have stuff to kind of put out, so we can, keep the flow going, all of that jazz. But before we get into that and today's topic, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at lanktr.ee/idiotbooknook. You'll be able to find links to our podcast, to our YouTube. You'll be able to find links to all of our individual socials, up to and including the Reading Dragons fundraiser, where she is raising funds in order to start her life over after some really unsavory circumstances. Today's topic that we're starting with may not always be where we end up at the end of the discussion. Just keep in mind this is an ADHD podcast. We are neurodivergent individuals, and we pride ourselves on that. We fully embrace that, knowing that things are never the same from one moment to another. Today's topic that we're starting with is going to be, what are things you look for from indie authors as a reader? So, Lady Punnet, why don't you get us started?
Okay, so, as you guys know, I love me my fantasies. I love fantasies. It is my all-time favorite genre. And a couple of years ago, at a local convention we were having in town, I have two examples of books. One's not fantasy. I'm starting with the fantasy. It's called Brothers, God Among Dragons. It's about Viking dragons.
Ooh.
I'm gonna be honest, though. It skirts real close to How to Train Your Dragon. Like, a little bit too close for my liking. Like, it's tipping the line of possible plagiarism.
Okay.
But I like it because it's like How to Train Your Dragon. And I have the sequel that I never got around to reading because, book readers and their infinite to-read lists.
Yeah.
Good pacing, good storyline, very interesting portrayal because it starts off with, the brother who is slowly going into madness because his whole goal is to keep his brother safe because he was born premature and almost thrown to the wilderness in the middle of winter, but was saved because he basically helped get his infant brother into a sled that was going to a allied clan.
Mm-hmm.
And that boy was raised as a child of the clan. Good story. Can't remember most of it. The other book series I really enjoy that I'm really pissed off about because I can't find the first book and it was signed. It's called The Kingdom of Walden. It is also by a local author here in town. I actually got to meet her, and she signed every one of my books I've gotten from her, which is why I'm pissed that I can't find the first volume. And basically, it is a current and post-apocalyptic world where all of a sudden, in the dead of winter in my hometown, the power goes out because we run out of oil. Like there's no oil in the entire world, and the government failed to tell us. And basically the power goes out and everything falls to shit, and there's a lot of death in it, and it's only thanks to a group of people who are survivalists and have a ranch and stuff that they're able to survive. And it talks about the trials they go through out all of the books. So that series is called The Kingdom of Walden. It is by Kristen Cannon. She has 5 books in this series. The first one being called After Oil, then The Last Iron Horse, Between Silence and Fire, Ghost Walker, and the last book, which I have to get, which came out right before the pandemic, is Ashes in Winter. And I love the pacing of this. I like the little tidbits because this might be a me thing because I grew up in the city, but I like reading about it like, oh, I know this area. Or, oh, yeah, that makes sense for that area. And, oh, they talk about the potholes. Those poor horses with the potholes. So many potholes. The pacing's good. It has a lot of descriptions in it, and it talks about certain areas in town and why more people survive there, or why it reeked because of the death and when the spring came and the bodies started to thaw. That was very descriptive. But yeah, I look for books that have good pacing, good descriptions. There wasn't a need for a lot of world building because of the fact that it's set in modern times. But I look for books that have good pacings, and if there's already an established lore like it's done in modern times, or if there's a magic based lore, if it's more of a show don't tell type of thing. Like it's fine if it's like someone telling a story, like an old wizard or like someone telling about it, but then it's the whole like, oh well, it's subjective, like what they say might not always be true, and
So
but yeah, those are 2 examples of like some indie authors I have.
fair, fair. So for me, a few of my favorite genres. I am huge on Star Trek. Star Trek books for me are absolutely wonderful. Has to be TNG and after, though. I can't do TOS, unfortunately, which sucks because I love the lore of TOS. I love the storytelling of TOS. I'm also very big on, well, if you can see my shelf here, if you're looking at the podcast, vampire books. That shelf is all full of vampire books.
Yep.
And I have a very soft spot for post-apocalyptic stories as well, or dystopian future / cyberpunk. One of the things that I look for is immersion. Immersion for me is huge. Unfortunately, my brand of neurospicy means any little detail can pull me out of a world. It can screw with my sense of disbelief, and if that happens, I cannot get back into the story. Once I'm in, I want to be in. You know, I want to sit here and wonder about it. I want to sit here and think about it, you know, moment after moment after moment. I want it to be literally a book that I can't put down, or a book that I am upset about having to put down because I have other things I have to do in my life. I want to be constantly drawn back to that book. I need to get lost in it.
You basically want one of those books like where it's like one more chapter. Oh shit! How is it 6 a.m.? Oh well, I stayed up this long.
Yes.
Might as well finish the book.
Yes, I absolutely need books like that. For me, if it can't pull me in and keep me entranced, it's not going to work for me. Unfortunately, a lot of these things are things like grammar and spelling. They are inconsistent details within storytelling, which I'm working on in my own storytelling ventures. But inconsistent details within storytelling. Speech that doesn't seem quite real, or doesn't flow naturally. Like, if somebody is more of, say you've got a commoner character, right? And they're speaking in a more formal tone, like you'd see from royalty with that. Not accent, but the more tonal inflection, I guess, ish dialect. Like,
I dare say you need to listen to your betters, boy.
instead of, oi, fucker, listen up.
Yeah.
Like, it's more common for a commoner to say, listen up. Or pay
I
attention.
think Yeah, I think an example for that for me is because immersion is also important. I like a book where I can literally just read it and I look up at the clock and realize, oh shit, I've been sitting in the same position for 6 hours.
Sorry about that. Um, kind of back on track here. One of the, like I said, I need to be pulled in to the universe, into the book, into the world building, and it has to be consistent. Unfortunately, this is also why I can't do things like black and white movies, right?
Yeah. For me, when a book starts to break immersion, this was more prevalent in like fan fictions in like the early to late 2000s, like with the stuttering, how it'd always be like a or or like the gasps, or just if a character is one dimensional, like manic pixie dream girls, where their only thing is to just be like this whimsical person that's to further the main character's friggin' storyline. I don't like characters like that. I mean, if you want to be a manic pixie dream girl on the surface and have more depth to it, like, oh, I like doing this because it helps express myself. Or I'm doing method acting, or even something similar like that. Great, but if it's just a whole like, oh, my whole point of my character is to further develop the main character, like that's bad character design. I cannot stand that. It's annoying.
My characters have to have flaws.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Mary Sue's.
Mary Sue's. Big issue for me. They are
No,
unbelievable.
no.
I have a lot of issues with those, and the other thing is I have issues with characters who think they have a solution for every problem. If you have a character that you are using to solve all of the problems that you have, one specific character, that's gonna take me right out of things. If you have a problem that you need to overcome, there are certain stages that you have to, follow when it comes to writing characters and conflict resolution. You have to kind of have a learning moment. You have to have new skills acquired in character development. Yes, but you also have to understand that your characters aren't going to be these solve all type people. It either has to be achieved through teamwork or through a realization from somebody else that, hey, I've actually dealt with this just in a slightly different way, or the problem doesn't get resolved, which gives you an opening for another book later on down the line.
Yeah.
And, a whole bunch of character introduction that way. Glitch says, I have a problem with Mary Sue's too. Ferret says, what about flowery prose, as in, I just ate a thesaurus syndrome?
Oh, you mean like people who like to toss in like really, really long words for the sake of trying to make themselves sound smart? Like, yeah, if I have to like look up like 10 words in one chapter because I don't know what the fuck they are, yeah, no. But slightly on Mary Sue's again, I think. So here's the thing: a Mary Sue is described as someone who can overcome any problem with little to no effort and always wins. Now, I think you can do these type of characters properly because an example of a character who has always won every single battle, like, and always seems to get more and more powerful with like little to no training, would be Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece.
Mm-hmm.
However, that is because even though he has always won every battle, like he does not have a lose count under his belt, to my knowledge. He has flaws. He can't swim. He sinks like a rock. He is literally an example of a very low intelligence character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he had -5 intelligence. He's always hungry. He would eat the people of the Straw Hat crew out of house and home. And yeah, so you can do a character who never seems to lose or has like a solution to problems properly.
Dude, stop
Like,
it.
if you had someone who was like a constant problem solver, but was also like terrible at social cues, or was really slow to give this information, just like, oh, I should have said that faster, or oh, this would be an example of when to lie. Okay, okay.
Another example besides Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece would be Son Goku from Dragon Ball. While
Mm.
while it is showcased that he does do constant training, he is not without his flaws either, especially when it comes to a lot of social cues because, well, he is an alien from outer space, so he is not overly familiar with a bunch of Earthling social cues type stuff. Um, and then there is the fact that, like Monkey D. Luffy, he is eating all the time. That being said, he's like constantly training, constantly working out. So yeah, he's got to make up for all those calories lost. And then he's just constantly happy-go-lucky until he can't. Then he
I think
goes into angry, I'm a fuck you up mode.
I
Yep.
think both Luffy and Goku are great examples of the Fool Tarot card.
Mhm. Yeah.
To show like like not just because they're considered like low intelligence people, but because they are always represented as the beginning of the journey and chances for growth down the line.
Yep. They are also considered equalizer characters because they constantly are getting stronger to basically defeat the villain every time.
One of the other things that I look for is descriptiveness.
Hmm.
I prefer show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Paint your scene with your words. That's the reason I keep using this phrase, paint your scene. I do it with my TTRPG players as well. Paint the scene with your words. Make me weep. I want to be able to sit here and I want to be able to see it in my head, because depending on what you tell me, it depends on what kind of a setting I see, right? Yeah, especially if we're sitting around a table and we're role playing. I want to be able to picture. So if I say, a room with rocks in it, that could be just about anything. Whereas if I say, a room cobbled together out of stone, or an old-fashioned rocky room, drilled out of a rock face with bones lying off in the corner, a dirt floor, and an oil lamp hanging overhead, that is a lot more descriptive. You can see what's going on. You can imagine it. Even though your image in your head might not be the same as who's telling you, you still get the general idea. I prefer more description, more descriptive terms. I don't mind sitting here if I'm writing and going on for a page and a half detailing what a room looks like. It means, yeah, the story's probably going to be a bit longer, but it's also, setting is important for things. Like, setting can make or
You
break
get off of there.
setting
Sorry.
can make or break a scene.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of other storytelling mechanics that can be used as well in order to help paint that for setting.
AP Cosplay says that Natsu from Fairy Tail slightly fits that as well, as a more modern
Yep.
take on it. Because
Yeah.
although One Piece is still very popular, I imagine not many people either remember or know of like the first arc of the story for One Piece. Because let's face it, One Piece has over 1,000 episodes now, and if you want to like rewatch the beginning, that's gonna take you at least like a
It's
month.
it's also starting to be considered one of the longest running anime currently too, alongside shows like Bleach and Naruto.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
think
was gonna ask about that.
the longest manga to my knowledge, like shonen wise, is actually Case Closed or Detective Conan. And
Yeah.
I think for shoujo, I think it's Glass Mask, if I
Hmm.
recall correctly.
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know.
Glass Mask is about basically a girl who wants to become an actress because she really has this natural talent for it, but she grew up poor, and her struggles with it and stuff. It was pretty good. I read it online. It was on hiatus for a bit from the translation team last I saw, and that was like when I was back in high school, I think. So
Yeah.
might be done now. But yeah, for immersion, like especially when you're painting a scene, if you can't get me dragged in to the world within the first chapter, I don't want to read it.
I've
Yeah.
actually started giving it a bit more than just the first chapter. I've started giving it probably until about chapter 3. If you can't get me before, there are some books that I can't go beyond chapter 1, just because of the language issues or immersion issues. But if I can at least get past that, I'll give it until about chapter 3. If you can't hook me by chapter 3, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be reading it. I'm not going to be recommending it. It'll probably go on my dust pile.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what else kind of like instantly drags me out of a plot is now, okay, so we all know how ADHD people are basically kind of psychic because we have really, really good pattern recognition and we see patterns in both real life and fictional scenarios. It's why no one wants to go to a movie to us, because we can tell who the villain is right away. So if it's like love triangles, I can't stand love triangles. I can't stand the friggin' pick me girl main characters who's like, I'm beautiful, but I'm plain looking.
Yeah.
I'm skinny, but I can lift up like a 20-pound warhammer with little to no effort. I want more Luisa characters from Encanto.
Yeah.
Muscular women who could break my head with their thighs. That's all I want.
You want a death by snoo snoo?
Well, maybe not death by snoo, but I wouldn't mind death by head with thighs.
That basically a death by snoo snoo girl.
Basically. But yeah, I want more like friggin' heroines like that. Because I was trying to read this book that someone recommended. I think it was like Glass Throne or something, whatever. And main girl was enslaved.
Sorry, Zeus has the zoomies and he's getting all antsy for no apparent reason.
Okay, so I was trying to read this book, and the girl was apparently enslaved or something, and the captain of the guard came in, and then there was a prince, and like, without even finishing the chapter, I was like, she's gonna get in a love triangle with the grumpy captain of the guard and the very snooty prince, and she's gonna have to choose between the two of them. And apparently she's the chosen one just because her hair is white or whatever. And it was like, I can't. I have read this too often. It's just, no, I like that kind of scenario if it's done right. But what's wrong with just like, everyone gets together, have a harem. But no, there has to be drama.
Always. There always has to be drama.
Also, the miscommunication trope.
Oh, I fucking hate that. I get where in stories miscommunication may have a place when it comes to, hey, this is part of the character development to create a scenario where they learn how to communicate better. However, if it's just going to be a common thing throughout the story and it's just not going to get changed whatsoever, that's where I have the issue.
I I wouldn't mind a miscommunication where it's literally like Telegram, or you're talking through a phone and there's a storm and the person A is trying to tell person B what's going on, but person B is only picking up like every other word, and it sounds like character A is doing something very, very wrong, and they're like, no, I'm not doing this. Can you... That can be kind of funny. So that can almost be like a Peter and Capaldi type thing. But I just like, I don't like it where it's like, oh, I see my fiancé with his childhood friend in the coat closet, when really the childhood friend was just like, listen, you got something in your hair, I gotta get it out of your... Otherwise, everyone's gonna make fun of you like last time. And I'm not dealing with you crying over that shit again.
See, I don't have a problem with miscommunication. I think miscommunication has its place. Speaking basically from my experience as communications, not so much, storytelling, but miscommunications have its place. It can be used to create suspense and drama, but you have to make it realistic. For instance, you have to remember things like tone can't be conveyed through text. You're not going to get that inflection. So things can be easily misconstrued there. Using the wrong words in order to convey intended meaning leaves the other person potentially with issues extrapolating that meaning from the message. Basically, you have the sender, the message, and kind of the receiver, right? If the message itself is flawed or if there's something wrong with it, the sender or the receiver aren't going to interpret it correctly. I think this can be used for plot points. I think this can be used for drama. It can be used to create moments of suspense, but make it realistic. Remember your time, your place, and your setting. Intonation cannot be conveyed through written word effectively. Texts, letters, postcards. You're going to get a lot more of that through phone calls. You'll be able to get the inflection and the tone, but you won't be able to see the person, so you won't be able to interpret what kind of emotions are on their face. Whereas in modern day, if you're writing in a modern day setting, video is our more modern form of communication. Snapchat, TikTok, you can tell what a person is kind of feeling, what they have displayed on the outside. You can tell by the tone in their voice, and you can get that kind of inflection and the meaning behind that. It's like being almost face-to-face, except not quite, because there are some things you can't even interpret through video, such as body language. For instance, you guys can't see what I'm doing with my hands right now. That is a limitation of video, per se. All I'm doing is wiggling my fingers, but just to drive home that point, right? So keep that in mind, and use that. I don't want to say don't use it, but use it sparingly. And if you can pull a punch with it for greater emotional effect, do it. Right, feel free to go for it. Don't just use it because it's there and it's convenient. Use it for those emotionally charged moments.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents, though.
Yeah. Kind of like a more detailed way of what I said earlier about there's a way to do it correctly, but then there are ways to where it can just be utter trash.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys keep talking. I will be back in a moment.
Okay.
So, what'd you guys do while I was away getting my internet situation?
Critter had to go do things, so we decided to have our very first episode of oh shit, what did we call it? I keep calling it a lot of T's. Tongues, trivia, and titillations.
Something like that.
Witch wrote me a character description that I'm going to take a look at later when Blaze sends it to me. But yeah, we started off on the topic of what do we look for in indie authors.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about one of my favorite book series, which I'm kind of mad about because I can't find the first book in the series, and I'm mad because I got it signed by the author. It's a really good book, and I kind of want to add it to our list.
Yeah.
But I know it's somewhere. Pretty sure it's somewhere. It has to be. Currently resisting the urge to, go through my Doom pile that's right behind me to see if I can find it. Because that wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
That's kind of bad.
Oh yeah.
Postmanship.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Hello.
Come back.
So, what else do we look for in a story?
If the main lead is hot,
I mean, yes,
I feel that's a
sometimes,
very
however.
important piece.
Personally, I like it when characters, especially when there is a character to be focused on, not necessarily the main character, but when you have a character that is focused upon, that you can relate to. I like characters I can relate to on some level.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. True. If I can't relate to a character, it's kind of hard for me to uh get invested in
Hmm.
the
Yep.
book
Yep.
because
Yeah.
the whole point of reading is to try to relate to the story or possibly make you think or just for self-indulgence.
Hmm.
I have to use the bathroom. I will be right back. Nacho, take my place. You're not Nacho, you're Nugget. Nugget, take my place.
I also like characters that I can emotionally invest myself in as well.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely, 100%.
the podcast on Spotify that I just caught up with over the last few weeks called Realm of Magic. I'm actually mutuals with the DM of that campaign.
Hmm.
Goes by Solomon, and uh, there are a few characters that I absolutely love. There's the relationship that has been growing between the characters Nellisky and Oswald. Nellisky is a mushroom person, uh, druid, I think. I forget what magic caster they are, but Oswald is an artificer, a half elven artificer, and they just have just this beautiful friendship growing, and it's like they're siblings but they're not, and it's just so wholesome and platonically loving, and I just love them so much, and I don't want anything bad happening to them, even though shit's already happened for the both of them. And it's like, stop hurting these two beings. And then another character that I have grown emotionally attached to is Waka, who is a shark person, and he is a monk fighter,
Hmm.
and he's effectively the group dad,
Hmm.
and I freaking love it. And it helps that the player for Waka is an actual dad in real life. So his role, his active role out of game as a father has been kind of playing into how he plays his character, even though his character is relatively what would be considered uh, a not middle-aged adult, but like kind of where my age is at, where late 20s, almost 30s, but in the translation for a shark person, because for the race that is being used in this world, I think it's a homebrew race that Solomon created with the player. They live for a really long time, and so Waka is already in his like 120s or something like that. But in human translation, this would be like a 29-year-old, 30-year-old male.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the story of Realm of Magic is just so wonderfully done, and the characters not only are relatable, but you can get emotionally attached to them, and the lore of the world, as well as Solomon did his uh, podcast on Spotify. He also has these episodes about the lore itself, separate from the main campaign. And there was this story called The Gardener, and it fucked me up so bad because it was about one of the villains, but how this villain became what he is. And I was just torn the fuck up over it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna spoil anything, but so many emotions.
AP says, I have two favorite series that have me hooked like that. Both are dark fantasy.
And hey, dark fantasy can be where it's at as well. There's a lot of that emotional attachment that happens, especially with dark fantasy or young adult dark fantasy as well,
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that when you go into the darker side of media or the darker side of literature, especially, it brings up a lot of the things that people of uh, like the last couple generations have had to deal with. And when you see that or read it or listen to it in media, it brings about that emotional relation, that emotional connection. It allows you to connect on a deeper level than just what you see, hear, or read on the surface, because it's talking about and reminding you of those darker moments in your own life.
I think books that can kind of mirror our day to day life or things that we're going through can hold, better, can hold more relevance for us. Or books that we use, stories that we use as escapism.
Hmm.
Um, One of my favorites is actually, one second, where is it? Julie Kagawa's The Immortal Rules.
Hmm.
This will forever be one of my favorites. Main character is called her name is Alison Sakamoto, and she starts out as a human,
Hmm.
as a scavenger in a society where vampires have basically taken over. It
Yeah.
starts out detailing that the vampires took over, and then the further you get into the story, the more it explains about how. It explains the why.
Yeah.
Um, she eventually gets a little too cocky, gets her entire
Hmm.
scavenging group killed.
Hmm.
She gets turned, and she heads off on her own quest. The passing away of kind of the former life. That is her moment of change. That is her moment of
Yeah.
having to confront herself. She has a lot of other moments where she has to confront herself as well, that work for character improvement. It's not as dark as, say, Anne Rice's novels,
Oh
but
yeah, they get
but
really dark.
the way that Julie Kagawa has written her monsters, you can feel the disconnect between who the person is and what they've become.
Yeah.
Which I think we're going to be, I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing chapter 6 when I get back around to it. I was actually thinking about potentially doing a chapter today, once I get off stream here. So we'll see how that goes.
What a chapter of what?
The Immortal Rules by Julie Kagawa.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were doing a separate stream for that.
It's on TikTok. I actually do it on TikTok. And I think it's the other 5 chapters
Hmm.
that I
Yeah.
will be eventually uploading to the YouTube.
Nice.
So, um, I don't
See,
know.
I was Yeah. See, I was thinking about trying to get into like live streaming shit, but between trying to pack and then needing to put out my GoFundMe again
Mm-hmm.
and then everything else, I just haven't had the energy for much of anything.
And that is fair. That is absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking this will be good for an episode, honestly. Once Lady Punnet gets back, we can work on closing out the episode. Oh, speak of the devil. Speak of the devil.
Hey,
Hi.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
Hello.
So, that's gonna cut it, or that's gonna pretty much do it, I think, for this episode of Tongues, Tangents, and Titillations, episode 1.
That's what this is called.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm calling it. So yeah.
Yeah.
If you're watching on the YouTube, it'll be in its own playlist. If you're through any of our podcasting platforms, you'll be able to find it if you scroll up and down our feed. I will label it appropriately. But for this episode of the Idiot Book Nook and episode 1 of Tongues, Tangents, and Tittilations, I'm Blazewing.
I am the reading dragon.
I'm Lady Bonnet.
And we'll see you next episode, whatever episode that happens to be.